Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Renata Ravilova, founder of Ghostwriting Agency that focuses on lead generation on LinkedIn and founder of Compostly, your ultimate content creation tool on LinkedIn. And today we are going to deep dive in the topic of the content strategy and its secrets. Welcome our special guest, Ed Sheeran.
Sheeran.
Joking. We have Luke Redhead here. He's the LinkedIn top voice, helping as many solopreneurs as he can to build the brands and businesses, and so they can live their best life. I guess he has something for you. And he already helped more than 100 people that got stuck with writing online, and now they're signing clients and actually posting regularly on LinkedIn. So let's get it started. Whew. I actually have one very intimate question for you to get started. I know a lot of founders, they don't feel comfortable sharing their vulnerability on LinkedIn, right? They say, oh, LinkedIn is such a serious platform. You cannot share something about your life, about your family, about your, let's say, fuck ups, right? But I know about your pivotal moment, right? You got laid off in 2023. And you mentioned previously that it took you more than 6 months to feel comfortable sharing your story publicly. And I think that's really helped you also to get some traction, because I do believe in vulnerable stories and they do perform really great on LinkedIn. The question is, what held you back and what finally made you decide to be that vulnerable online?
Yeah, so I don't think it's just LinkedIn. I think it's generally. I think people have this, preconceived expectation that they have to show up as an expert. They have to know what they're doing. They have to have it, perfectly nailed all the time. But we're all in the messy middle. There's people who are making millions who are thinking about the next thing and they're afraid to start. Like, we're all in that same position. So for me, it was more of a part of it was a pride thing, and part of it was almost like an embarrassment thing. I've put a lot of effort into that. I was very, very career driven. I had spent years kind of getting to that level, and then it just stopped. And I just felt to be honest, I felt like a bit of an idiot. I didn't want to post or share it. I just thought, I'll just keep it quiet and keep going. But, as I say, it took about 6 months. And in that time, I actually I had a few conversations with people who, had been through similar or experienced something similar. And in that time, I realized actually that, this could help. I know when I was going through it, one of the best things I heard was people saying, hey, I've been through it and look, it's fine. So you'll be fine. And that's how I was able to kind of get to grips with being able to just share it and talk about it. And not necessarily in a look at me way, because that's the other thing that holds people back. They don't want to share their stories and say, hey, look at me, I'm really cool. It feels vain. It feels, strange to do that. But that's the stuff, if you can, kind of get over that fear, that's the stuff that people can relate to. And so that's it. It took me a while to do it. But when I did, I had one person reach out in the comments and say that they were going through exactly that as well. They said that this is what they're facing. This is what they're struggling with. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they became a client purely off the back of that story. That's what sparked the conversation, because they said, oh, that guy's done it as well. So yeah, I think it's just that fear of judgment, but people don't care. Really.
People are too busy living their own lives to care for each other.
Absolutely are. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I like how you changed the perspective. So it's not about you being vulnerable. It's about you actually resonating with other people who've been through similar things. So it's actually nothing much about you, but actually about others and connecting through these shared moments. So I think maybe more founders now, or people in general on LinkedIn, will feel more comfortable to sharing stories like this, and you got a client out of it. So I think that's a really big deal. So yeah.
It absolutely is. You're right. And it's, it only builds trust, I think, because people get to know you and where you've been, how you've learned the things you've learned, why you do things the way you do. You know, it's like the age old, you know, generic information is just generic. You know, if it, I could do a post tomorrow and just say how to get a client on LinkedIn. And it's just, okay, cool. But if I give it context and say, I got laid off and I had 3 months to find a client, otherwise I wouldn't pay the bills. Here's how I did it. You know how it just gets that gravitas. That's what it does. And people trust and go, "Ooh, that's cool. I like that. I like the backstory." So that's the magic of it. That's how it works.
That's awesome. Pretty beautiful. You put it that way. And I know that you built, I have no idea what the meaning of this, but you will elaborate on that. You built what you call rucksack business, right? Is when everything fits in the backpack and you can work from anywhere. And I do the same, like basically, well, the laptop is all I need, right? But how this philosophy, for example, shaped your content strategy from day one.
The idea of the rucksack business is that within 10 minutes, if I had a phone call now and my phone rang, within 10 minutes, I could be in the car driving to go anywhere I need to, and the business can come with me. I don't have to just stop working. That's the idea. And part of the reason behind it is because my fiance, she has cystic fibrosis. So there are times where she's very healthy. She's very well now, all things considered. But, a couple of weeks ago, she was ill and she had to go into hospital, and she was in hospital for, a good week or so. I think 2 weeks actually. Anyway, and she's in the next city over. So it's a bit of a way to go. Now, it was brilliant, obviously that wasn't brilliant, but it was brilliant that I could just laptop shut, visiting hours, cool, in the car, off we go, and we could kind of just spend the day together. I had a little bit of work I needed to do, a couple of hours or so I could, sit there, get that done, but without having to not be there. It's not like I had to wait until certain times or had meetings and things. I could shift everything around to be there. And that's what makes it so special for me. It's just, you can do that, But in terms of the content strategy, the reason or the logic behind doing that. So I don't want to be glued to a laptop all the time. So, the way I do it is I have kind of a set hour or so where I'm online, I'm doing this, socials and things like that. And then outside of that, it's just work focus. It's projects, it's clients, it's, all of that good stuff. In terms of the actual content around that, I'm very big on sharing beliefs and vision and sharing stories as well. So, like I don't care for, big corner offices in, city, skyscrapers and things. Do they look amazing? Yes, they do. Would it be really cool to say I've got a team of 100 and I've made 100 million quid? Yes, it would. But for me, when I get to kind of 90 years old, will I have cared about doing that? Will I look back and think, do you know what, I could have had more time to do this or to do that? And that's how I think. So one of the big things I talk about a lot in my content is just that line of thinking and just share, I don't really care about this. I care about this instead. And the idea is that the people who do care about those other things, I'm kind of signaling to them, I'm not the guy to help, like never will be. And the ones that align with, that don't want those things and the ones that want the things that I do talk about and I do believe in, I'm kind of more of a voice for them, and it's giving them more of a deeper thing to see. So not just, I'll teach you how to grow on LinkedIn. It's, I'll teach you how to grow on LinkedIn or how to write online so that you can achieve this. This is what we're working towards ultimately. So that's a big staple in the content.
Awesome. Like now I see more clearly your approach to life in general, right? So you, first of all, you don't, put like your life around the work. You do the opposite. You put the work around the life and you take that as a priority. And now I also understand why you connect with solopreneurs more specifically, right? And target this audience because it's really, I do agree with like the importance of the, being more present in life, sharing the moments with your loved ones, do actually what you love instead of like hey, chasing the big numbers or whatsoever. Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
big numbers are great, right? Like I wouldn't not mind like, 8 figures business or whatever.
Me too.
Yeah,
I
well,
would love it. But it's always a why is the big question, If you said, here's an 8-figure business, I'd say brilliant. Straight away, my brain goes to cool. Well, what does that mean for life? Like, what can I do? And it's not to say that I don't love working. I, you know, I love what I do so much that, some nights I'm working till sort of 6, 7 o'clock or, on a weekend I hop on my laptop because I just enjoy it that much, not because I have to. And that's the difference. It's like a hobby that you get paid to do. It's so nice to have that.
awesome. Another question I have is like, I know that there is a lot of like a ton of people who like, just going around and say like, oh, I don't know what to post, what to share online, like what I can share, like they don't even ask me this experience. They just don't know what to post in general, I think. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, like I don't have maybe enough expertise. I'm not cool enough or whatever. And the question is, how do you help this people and maybe specifically solopreneur to get comfortable with being like, you know, posting and sharing and defining like, what to share.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple of different approaches to it, but they all do the same thing. And the key here for me is we don't want to just end up being a repeat of what other people do. You know, there's 8 billion people on this planet. You're going to have some crossover with other people. Like that's going to happen. But we don't want to take LinkedIn, for example. We don't want to log on. What's performing well and then just share that idea. It's always about sharing the unique, you know, philosophies, the insights. That's the stuff that builds real connection and real trust. So for this, somebody has no idea what to post. I think the first thing would be to look back over the last week and just look at things that you've done. What conversations have you had with people? What things have you been working on? What have you noticed? What have you thought about? Even there alone, there's a lot of post ideas. But then to get more targeted with a strategy, I always start with what's the goal and what do I actually want to happen. So, if I'm focusing on, if I want to get some more reach, bring some new people into the world, I won't do deep offer posts and invite people to work with me. I'll share some ideas, some bigger picture thinking, maybe some stories that typically would get better reach. And then once I know that, I've then got a Notion document that I give to all my clients as well. And it's got, I think, about 130, 140 different questions on it that you can just pick out. So it kind of says, if you want awareness, this batch, go and look at this section here. And then the idea is, as you look through that, it's, you'll have one or two that will just spark, oh, I thought about that last week. So for example, it could be a question like, what's something that you disagree with? And you might have something you think last week, you've seen somebody post and they say, oh, you need to be posting 4 times a day. And you think, actually, no, I don't think 4 times a week's plenty. So then I could turn that into a post. And then suddenly now we're breaking out of what I call the blank page syndrome, which is where you sit and stare at a blank page and just hope for an idea. It never works. So that's the key thing. Get those prompts. And then from there, I've got like content flows, I call them. It is very, very loose structures. But there's about 20 or 30 of those. And you can take that idea and then you can just structure it into a step-by-step. Here's what to write about. So the whole idea of it is that it doesn't write it for you. It gives you the guidance to kind of channel your own brain to thinking of what it has to, rather than, because we all know there's a million different things we could talk about online. How do you start? With a million things. That's where it's really hard. Whereas if you've got one question to answer that goes, oh, there's an idea, cool. And then how can you make that one thing into a flow? So, for example, like before, after bridge is a very common example here. But you could say before posting 4 times a day, it's stressful, it's very hard to keep consistent. 4 times a week does this, and you get to have more time in the DMs talking to people. You get to do this, you get to do that. And then the bridge could be like the strategy. But now you can start to see how just this one idea is starting to take shape as a post now and get a bit of a flow to it. And that's essentially it, is how I do it with clients. We start with the spark, we find the flow, and then we basically write it in this 4-step flow with the hook, the flow, the ending takeaway, and then if we need one, a call to action. And that's it for every post.
Sounds simple.
Always sounds simple.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
this is the beauty of it. I'm glad you said that because a lot of people overthink it. And I've done it a million times in the past. It's very, very common to do. But it's only a post. I always say to
Don't
clients that,
overthink it for sure.
oh, literally, anytime a client asks me, like, oh, they say, or they allude to that they're overthinking with their content, I always ask them, tell me exactly what 4 posts you wrote last week. And they can't remember word by word what they wrote. That's how quickly you can move on from them. So write them, ship them, learn from them, go again. Overthinking doesn't help.
Good strategy. Like for me, what helped when I was kind of stuck with the content, etc., it's first of all is like make it a habit. Let's say like to write down your thoughts, etc. Like daily, preferably, because some do the journaling. Right, it also helps to free up your space in the mind. And last year, I also joined one of the challenges of the content creation. We were in a group, and we needed to like share a piece of content with at least 500 words in a group chat. And we don't need to post it, but just in a group chat. So you will have, this habit. I was in this challenge for over 100 days and it worked like magic. Now I don't think I ever have a question of what to post. I always kind of have
Good.
a lot of thoughts and things in mind so that I want to, share. But I think aligning the, post ideas to your goals is very important because you don't want just to create a post for the content's sake, right? But you want actually to drive some results. What we did, for example, in our service Compostly, we tried to also help users with this problem of the blank page by generating ideas for them. So we do like the profile DNA of the users to understand who are they, what is their ICP, what their target market, etc., based on their LinkedIn profile. And then we also combine it with the industry trends and use what's going on there and generate like several ideas that can be used for the content creation. This is our more base for the lead generation because we're specifically focusing on this, but that might be also helpful to try if you have no idea what to post at all. About the repurposing content, I think you mentioned also reposting some elements from the post that work well. How do you, first of all, analyze what made the post successful and also extract repeatable parts?
So this is where that 4-step process comes in really nicely. The hook, flow, takeaway, and then call to action. Obviously, it depends on what the goal is with the post, first of all. So, if we're looking at an offer, like we've pushed an offer out, let's say it's a lead magnet, for example, we're not going to measure on how many impressions it got because the goal is how many people can we get signed up. So in those cases, I look at like my newsletter. If I see a spike on a certain day, I think, oh, that post has driven a good outcome that I want to happen. So then I can look at it. Okay, cool. Well, was it the flow? Like, was the topic engaging? Did it lead nicely into that? Or was it the call to action? Was that the thing that did it? And then I can take, say, the call to action, try it on a different post. If it performs really well again, brilliant. I know that call to action's got legs. I can use it again. If not, it was probably the angle of the post. Same for if I want to get some good reach. We all know that There's this logic I live by here. A good post with a bad hook always loses to a bad post with a good hook. And it's even just psychology as well. In those first two sentences, if you don't hook people in, they scroll past. So you could have literally the best post in the world, but if they're not hooked in, they won't read it. There was a company that did, in their terms and conditions, they put a line in and they said, if you read this, and this is a true story, you can Google this. If you read this, email this email address and the first person will get $1,000. It took 8 months for someone to read that. Because terms and conditions are boring. No one wants to read them line by line. That's the idea. And it's the same here that, if I want to get a post that gets, good reach, if I want to attract new people, even if I just want to get people to read the post and, I need to have a good hook. So if I see a spike with a post, typically, cool, let's look at the hook. Why did that work well? What did that do? How can I change the style of that, but keep, the essence of it the same? Maybe change the topic. So instead of, I don't know, terrible example here, but 10 reasons or 10 lessons behind writing online could be 10 lessons behind being a solopreneur. I can just change the angle, but keep the hook the same. And that's key. It's, if you're going to go to the effort of writing a post and, creating something like that, you might as well make the most of it. It's not a one-time done and finished thing. You might as well get more use out of it. So yeah, but that 4-step structure, that is the big thing that helps a lot. Hook, flow, takeaway, and call to action. And just keep an eye on those 4 elements of it.
Okay. Then the following question. In terms of hooks, how do you define a good hook, and how do you, for example, do you find them separately, or you're thinking what will be hooked, or do you have any specific approach to make a great hook?
Yes, I do. So I teach this in my coaching program. I've kind of broken it out into 9 different hooks. And I'm not going to go through each one to be here all day, but the key essence of it is curiosity. It's enough to get people to want to know more, but without giving them everything straight away. That's the point of it. So, there's a thing, it's like an open loop, it's known as. And the concept's very simple. Human beings are wired up to not like not knowing things. So that's why you see a lot of posts that say, let's just say this strategy got me 100,000 followers and it only takes me 10 minutes a day. And the brain goes, I need to know this now. How? And that's it. That's all it has to do in a good hook, is just to get people to go, how? And then just click see more and read the rest of it. That's it. So yeah, as long as it drives that curiosity, obviously we don't want to be clickbait where we get attention for no reason, but it's there to get people in, to get their interest and make them just naturally want to keep reading.
Yeah, I remember there was a time, I think it was last year, when it was spiking this kind of hooks, like I did this and that's what I learned from this. I remember even somebody was mocking, like, oh, I had a wedding last week. This is what I learned for the to be the sales representative, something like this.
Yes, yeah, that was a post that went very viral.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
good. I think like on LinkedIn, even though it's a still quite serious platform, I think mocking people actually really performs. Like, the kind of, exaggerating things and stuff.
yeah, it does. It does. It's something that I'm, personally not the biggest fan of. Only because, I mean, people, we all have different opinions on things, and I'll happily share my opinion and stuff, but I don't ever want to tear someone down. They can do it their way and it might work for them, doesn't work for me. In the same way, the way I do things works for me. They might think it's a load of rubbish, and yet we're both successful in our own rights, doing our own thing. So,
Exactly. And haters gonna hate, right?
yeah. And there'll always be someone,
For sure.
always someone.
So from like 2,000 plus posts that you wrote, How do you avoid repeating yourself while still reinforcing your core messages?
Yeah. So I think 2,000 posts is that's a lot of posts. And to be honest, not all of them, probably not even half of them made it online. A lot of them were drafts that just kind of evolved or phased out or, something wasn't right with them. But they helped with a lot of the muscle memory and the ideas. But in terms of, repeating yourself, it's not a bad thing. I had this a while ago, but it kind of stuck with me. And I was out with a couple of friends and I was talking about something, something that happened, something that I was interested in. And they were like, oh, you've already told us this story before. I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm excited about it. So I want to share it because it's cool. I like talking about it. Sorry. And I think that's the thing. It's, repetition is key with this game. Who cares if you shared it once before? Because one of two things will happen. One, your post isn't going to be seen by everyone. Not even all your followers are going to see it. So, you know, when you repeat it, the second time you share it, or third or fourth, they are going to see it for the first time. Or they're new people that have come into your audience that hadn't seen it before. And the ones that have seen it, well, it's only going to be a good reminder for them. It's only going to help it sink in. But I find, you can take one idea and write it in 1,000 different ways. And I think that's the key bit here is it's not necessarily about just saying the same thing 1,000 times. It's having different ways and different ways of sharing that and putting it out there. So that's why, you can share a story, a vision, a belief, your mission. I mean, that's four of pretty much the same thing already. And then just like we said before, you take those four key parts of it. One of them did really well. Cool. Let's tweak the hook. Let's change that bit of it. And then the flow of the story changes a little bit. It might be 80% similar, but it's now new. And that's the beauty of it. So, yeah, it's a hard one to come to terms with because I struggled a lot. Every week I was trying to think of new ideas, but people don't need new ideas. If you stand for something, which everybody posting and building a brand does, you're sharing the same vision, the same idea. You might just have a new, like a new story to share that ties back to the same thing. But you want to be known for something, not just known for sharing many things all the time.
I do agree in terms of repurposing content. I think it's really great and I think it should be used because we don't want to work harder. We want to work smarter, right? And especially if it's performing, it's performed a month ago, I'm okay to repurpose it once a month. So we even had a case for our clients in a ghostwriting agency that we used a successful post that was written actually even before us that got maybe 10K impressions. We reused it. We got first 50,000 impressions. So it's 5 times more for reusing. And the founder has only 3,000 connections. Then we reused it next month. It got 400,000 impressions for the same kind of strategy, just a little bit changing the hooks, changing the inside information. But yeah, you can repurpose and even get even better.
Yeah. And that's just it. That's fantastic proof, That's 450,000 more impressions on a post that you probably already thought, oh, that's really good. So it's fantastic proof. And I think that's the key thing is they build trust with you. I mean, I've had one of the clients I'm working with now, she followed me for 18 months before becoming like a lead, before she bought something. And then eventually now we're working together one-on-one, but it took 18 months. If I'd have just shared random things that whole time, it probably wouldn't have led to much, but it was that consistent, here's what I stand for. Here's, my story. Here's something I've done with clients this week. Here's how we're working towards this. Here's how I believe on that. It just keeps reinforcing and reinforcing and reinforcing. That's ultimately what you want with the content. And that's why repurposing is such a good asset to have.
For sure. And as we talk about the content strategy in this podcast episode, I just wanted to dive more in your approach as you have a specific audience you want to target, right? Solopreneurs that have, for example, ability to travel anywhere, work from anywhere as well, right? To have that share the same values as you are. So how do you approach this content creation in terms of the strategy yourself?
Very simply, I have a bit of a system here where I've got socials at the top. And then ideally, my goal is to guide them into like my newsletter. And then from there, I can invite them in and go from there. Now, the key bit here is I'm trying not to just build this newsletter as big as possible. I'm very, very, very invested in the thousand true fans concept. So to explain that slightly, essentially you need to find 1,000 people who trust you enough that they would pay you, let's say $100 once a year. And if you can do that, you've got a six-figure business. And if you, instead of it being 100, let's say it's $1,000, you only need 100 people. Maybe your goal's not a six-figure business, maybe it's less, and you just want to be able to work when you want. Again, the numbers can be, played around with. But the idea is I would like to build this newsletter that I can sit down, I write very much how I would speak, very much my own thoughts, very much my way of thinking, play around with it and enjoy it. And then just naturally invite people in and say, hey, this is what I'm doing in a couple of weeks. Would love it if, I've got 5 spaces. If you're interested, here's the details. And then the goal from the socials at the top is to, obviously, if you have a post, like you say, one that gets 400,000 impressions, that alone is incredible. And then this is where my brain goes to, cool, well, out of the 400,000 people, how many of them would be a good fit? How can I naturally guide them into the next step, into the newsletter? Because not 400,000 people, they won't all be a good fit. Totally normal. So then it's just a case of how can I guide them in to my newsletter? And then from my newsletter, how can I then invite, that next step? If it's to just start a conversation, maybe I'm doing like a workshop. It might even be I've got a couple of spaces open for coaching. If you're interested, here's the details. And that's the way I like to do this. It means that I'm not too reliant on the socials. Because as we all know, they are, as people call it, rented land now. But it also means I can have more fun with them because I'm not necessarily, I don't have to, I need to get clients from it all the time. I just need to show people how I think. And if they align with that and my vision and the direction I'm going, here's the next step. And then that just brings them closer. And then that could start the conversation. That could lead to, even if they just join the newsletter, it could be 3 months' time and they might see something and go, do you know what? Actually, now's the time. Only because that system's in place.
Okay, awesome. So there is a funnel that you lead, connections through. I think that's smart. And especially, I do agree that it's kind of a rented land, especially with all the algorithms changing, the politics and whatever. Sometimes it's just unpredictable.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah. You just never know with it, which is it. And that's, realistically, the whole point of this whole business game is 3 things. And I use this often, especially with clients if they're overthinking or overwhelmed. We need to attract people we can help, invite them in to work with them, and then we just over deliver on that. Really go, obviously, you've got to over deliver it. And that's as simple as it needs to be. Socials, and writing online is my way of attracting. Is it the only way? No, it's not. That's just my way of it. That's how I prefer to do it. But when you boil it right down, that's all business actually is. It's just those 3 steps.
Simple, but it's actually simple. Like you don't need to overcomplicate stuff. So if we're talking about the future, looking ahead, how do you see content strategy changing? Like not maybe only on LinkedIn, but in general for the founders who are building personal brands?
I love this question. I think it's going to change in a good way. Now, I've seen this in the last year and then, or maybe the last 2 years or so. there seems to be a bit of a divide going on. And I think one's starting to get an edge on the other. So the divide is this: reach has been dropping across the board on all platforms for people. Some people are turning to AI and using that to find the best, what's going to perform well, what's going to get the good reach and things. There's a bit of a mix in the middle of the two as well. But the other side is that people are just going, "Do you know what? I just want to share my own thoughts, my ideas, how I think, the things I've been working on, things I've done with clients, all of that stuff, and just writing." Um, but yeah, there's some people that kind of sit in the middle, but I think the latter is where it's going to evolve more to. Um, we've seen it happen already. You know, LinkedIn, I mean, one of their things for being a top voice was authentic, and insightful content, and I think if you're going to just share, let's just say ChatGPT writes a post and you share that, it's not thoughtful because there's not much thought that's gone into it. You know, it depends on how it's used. I know there's a lot of complexity to it, but to put, if it was black and white and you just say, ChatGPT, write me a LinkedIn post and then post it, there's no thought to it. Whereas the posts, and these are the ones that really resonate well with me, that I enjoy reading, the ones where people are saying, this is what I'm building, this is the direction I want to go in, or, this is something that I've observed recently, this is what I've noticed, this is how I think. That's the stuff that, it's not just information. And that's the key. There's a very wise coach of mine last year who explained this really well to me. And he basically said there's 3 levels of content. He said level 1 is just generic information, how to get leads. That is just, you could Google that. But you can't Google level 2 and 3, which is level 2 is personal. How I get leads. It's your way of doing it. It's your backstory. And level 3 is how my clients get leads. No one can Google 2 or 3. The information, the strategy, it might be similar to stuff they've seen already, but it's your context to it. Why you do it in that way, why you think in that way. That's the stuff that I think is going to really grow and build these content strategies in the next year or two, definitely.
That is beautifully said. And I think it's a good way to end up and round up our conversation. Thank you, everyone. We had Luke Redhead here with us, aka Ed Sheeran. And if you have any final words you want to add, please do so.
Yeah, I would just say, it is a long-term game, and especially creating content and writing online. So the key things I would be thinking are 1,000 True Fans. Definitely think about that. And if you've not read it, a quick Google, you'll find it. It is well worth reading. This is an incredible, incredible time. Literally, you can build a rucksack business that can change your whole life, which is mind-blowing to me. But it doesn't happen overnight. You can write one post and it will flop. I mean, my first 10 posts, I can't remember how many flopped. I remember I celebrated my first post that got more than 10 likes, in the double digits. There's a picture of me on LinkedIn that I've showed a few times. My first ever viral post was one where it was me celebrating 1,000 followers. It's not 100,000 followers. It's not a massive thing, but it was a small step. And that's how the game goes. Everybody starts with 0. But a lot of people along that 12-month way will probably quit because they'll think, oh, this is hard work. This is frustrating. But I can say from my experience, it is well worth it. So, keep going, keep experimenting, keep learning, keep testing. Don't take the metrics to heart too much because you'll see ups and downs all the time, and just have fun with it because, like I said earlier, you'll be 90 years old. You'll look back. Either you'll look back and go, God, that was good fun. Or you'll go, God, I wish I enjoyed it more. So make sure you do it the right way.
Yay! Sounds very delightful. Inspiring, let's say. Amazing. So go ahead. We will add all the links of Luke of his LinkedIn. Follow his on LinkedIn, connect with him, follow his newsletter, work with him in coaching and ghostwriting wherever suits you. He's a great guy. Also, go and try a free post trial on Ecopostly and see you soon. Bye bye.